MacKinnon, DGM Group.
Good morning, all. My submission concerns development contributions policy and activation of central city living in Christchurch. Firstly, the written submission I put in it was done reasonably quickly, and looking back it's a little bit rough and strident, so please take the edges off it if you can soften it a little bit. We've been active apartment developers since the mid-90s, and we're steaming back into it again post-earthquake. We've got a couple underway with more coming up. Through no intention of our own, it's transpired that we've ended up one of the most experienced apartment developers in Christchurch. There was no aim to be that, but it's just how it's panned out. But we have a good view on what works and doesn't work. If I can start by the Council and Crown currently have an aim for 25,000 people within the central city by 2025, which is 10 years away. The previous two mayors also had an aim of 20 to 30,000 people living in the central city per year. One of the things I always struggled with that, sorry, not per year in total, one of the things I always struggled with that is that there was no action taken to follow that up. It was all effectively hot air. It was great hot air. I love the idea, but there was nothing done to activate it. Now, post-earthquake, something has been done to activate it, and it has already helped, and that's the rebate policy. Just before I get into that, if I can give you some numbers on the state of residential growth in the central city, we estimate there is about $30 million a year at the moment spent on new residents in the central city. This is talking right in the core, at an average of $500,000 each. That's about 60 apartments or townhouses units per year at 1.5 to 2 people. That's about 100 people per year, or 2 a week coming in. So that's the state of play at the moment. To get to 25,000, it's currently about 5,000. We need 20,000 more, which is 2,000 per year, or 40 per week. So you can see we're out by quite a significant factor. 20-fold. It's very significant. There are a number of tools that can be done used to activate this. For example, amenity especially is crucial. Council does really good parks and things like that. That's one tool. But the main tool I'd like to talk about, of course, is the rebate policy. At the moment, with the rebate policy, it works really well. And if I can explain it by way of example, we have a project at the moment at the corner of Kilmore Street and Cranmer Square that we're currently selling. Building consent application is due in yesterday. It's been yesterday for a few days. Most of the apartments are priced sort of 450 to 500,000 each, and we're getting good sales. We've got about half of them sold.
Which site's that's just?
It's the old Ernst Young building. As you go down Kilmore Street, just before you hit Cranmer Square, there's 2 little old historic cottages on the corner. We're not those, but we wrap around it.
Right.
So the start of the...
Oh, yeah.
Right there. So we encompass the commercial zone and the residential zone. And we've got a 3-stage apartment complex to go in, with the first stage just about to start.
Great.
So in there, if we have an apartment, we've sold some at $490,000. If development contributions were payable on that, that puts them up to $520,000. That happens because development contributions are a cost. If they come in at between $20,000 and $25,000 per unit, by the time the other costs are added on and it goes out the door, it goes out at $30,000, and that's just a reality that's inescapable. Selling them at $490,000, we're doing well. I suspect if we had to raise the prices by 6% to $520,000, we wouldn't have as many sales right now, so it is working well. The problem with the current rebate policy are the limits on it, the monetary limit and the time limit. If we want to get to 25,000 people, we need to push hard and be bold. My submission is get rid of those limits, the time limit and the monetary limit, until we reach 25,000 people. Or even if we reached 12,500 people or 10,000, 10,000 would be enough of a momentum to start feeding on itself and growing itself. That's effectively the bulk of my submission. One other point is, in doing a bit of research on other areas around the world that have worked in central cities, one example, Melbourne, that sparked because of, as my understanding is because the people came first in residential, and then all the other bits and pieces, the cafes and the services and everything followed. What I noticed, and this is slightly off my submission, is that council has a focus on retail and business for various reasons, and I'd strongly suggest, if you want to drive this, try and switch your focus more to the residential side rather than the retail and the business side. There's a few of us out there active, and we're keen to be involved and make the whole thing work, but really we've got to increase it 20-fold. We've got a lot of work to do. I think we could double the current market pretty easily, but to get up to 20-fold, I think it's a big ask. That's effectively my submission. If anyone has...
Look, I wouldn't mind taking a couple of questions, so Raf and then Yanni.
Thanks, Grant. It's a great submission, and actually we've been talking about incentives for the central city, and one suggestion I've made actually is just taking DCs off completely, which is what you're suggesting.
Yes.
Brilliant idea. Are there any other incentives in terms of rates even?
Well, rates definitely are a big one, and I just did I did the Gallery Apartments building, which was next to the Art Gallery just before the earthquakes. It's gone now, unfortunately. When I bought that site, it had an old building on it that we paid rates on of, I think it was about 3,500, 4,000, but say for argument's sake, 5,000 per annum. When we finished, we had 18 apartments paying $5,000 each. So 90,000 per annum compared to 5,000 per annum. That's the income difference for council. So if you can the rebate, the development contributions, is still a substantial increase in income that would come. Another tool would, of course, be shaving that $90,000 overall rates bill back to the original 5. Now, and that would significantly help, because one of the complaints we get on some apartments in town, people are paying, like the previous submitter, very substantial rates, and it is a factor, it's definitely a factor for people, is the annual running costs when they add it up against their body corporate expenses becomes very high.
Say that number again, so 5,000 for the original property.
Yes.
And how much for how many apartments?
There were 18 apartments, and each of them were paying rates of roughly about the same, so about 5,000 each.
But the total was coming out of the building?
About 90
grand.
18 times 5,000.
Yeah. 18 apartments. Okay,
it was more rubbish, yes.
That's great. Yanni?
In that question about the scale of DCs that we charge in the central city and how much we charge for the greenfield development, do you think we need to charge more in the greenfields where there's no infrastructure to counterbalance charging less in the central city so that we can encourage that incentive? I'm just trying to understand how we create the demand in the central city and possibly not provide too much incentive for people to keep building on greenfields, which seem to be very expensive.
Yeah, how it's easy to paint something like this as a subsidy from one part of the community to the others, so how you actually structure it, I'm not quite sure. That's something for the politicians, I guess. But effectively, it does have a significant impact. So if it means increased cost out in the greenfields and lower cost in town, that would work. How you sell that to the public, I'm not quite sure. But if you want 25,000 people, then this is a very significant tool. I can assure you that if our prices were 520 instead of 490, we wouldn't have as many sales right now. Does that answer your question? I'm not quite sure.
No, that's that's.
Yes, I see, yeah. Yeah, and I've seen that. I've been involved with the development forum.
But asked and answered. So, look, thank you very much. Really helpful submission. Thank you.
Thanks.
Linwood Woolston Schools, Lee Walker.